Hello YouTube, I'm Vince White. I'm an employment attorney and this video is getting out late today. Late! It is 3:15 p.m. Eastern Time and I am just making today's video. Neither the algorithm nor the viewer base will be pleased with me, but it's been a wild day and the clients come first. We have a question from one day ago posted by YouTube user Franco, and it was posted on our January 21st of 2022 video entitled, "What should you do if the employer's attorney wants to talk settlement?" And Franco asks, I'll read the question into the record here. He asks, why would an attorney want to settle so fast and low without filing through the EEOC process? Especially if you have really good evidence backing the claim. Is it that they just want to get in and get out? Okay, so a couple different possibilities here. I'm going to kind of confirm. The first possibility is going to confirm a lot of your thoughts. There's a thing that goes on in this industry called case flipping. Okay, there's a whole bunch of attorneys who do this, and it's generally not a good thing. Generally not a good thing. So I'm going to describe this kind of by the economics of New York, but this goes on in a lot of different places. So in New York, it might often cost an employer $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 to fight off a case. Sometimes it costs them less. They might have attorneys with a volume deal. They might have in-house counsel who fight the case. There's a lot of things that go on, but generally, employers who are going to be hiring a defense firm will probably be paying around that number. They might hire a firm like Jackson Lewis to get the case settled. That is more of a budget option, a very talented option. I'm not making fun of Jackson Lewis. I'm just saying, they tend to be, generally they're often hired to settle cases, not to try cases, in my limited experience. Or you'd be paying top dollar for one of these fancy pants white shoe firms that will charge the $1,300, $1,400, $1,500 an hour. That kind of situation. So the employer will be looking at a case and saying, oh, we don't even know if we're guilty or not, but we know we might want to offer $10,000, $15,000, $20,000, because even if we're completely right, it's going to cost us at least that much to fight this case. This makes sense for the employer, but it's kind of bad for the industry. It's good for that individual who gets money that she or he may not actually deserve, right? Like somebody's got like a junk claim that's kind of like, well, it's not the most true thing in the world, or a claim where, there's some questions as to liability. There's some questions the employer even knew about the protected class. Stuff like that happens, right? Where you look at the case and you're like, I don't know about this one, right? And it's tough because you want to help people, but also sometimes the case isn't in good shape, so you have to make these decisions. I did a whole video recently about why employment attorneys might turn down cases, and it ruffled some feathers. So go watch that video and you can pause a moment and think about how despicable I am. But anyways, those cases, when they do get brought, and they often get brought, you will always be able to find an attorney who will take your money, right? And that's always my point, right? The attorneys are like, well, I appreciate that you want to hire me, but I don't feel comfortable taking your money. They get beat up on a lot because people are like, oh, help me, help me, help me. It's like, well, hold on. That person's not trying to rob you. And maybe on a really bad case with a lot of flaws, the attorney who's like really eager to take your money, I have questions about motivation, right? But I digress. So this thing goes on in the industry where these kind of not as good cases, which many attorneys which defense attorneys, frankly, would call nuisance value cases, can get like a $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 settlement sometimes. So you'll get attorneys who take cases and maybe make 2 phone calls and then call up their client and say, hey, I got you 20 grand. Take it. The client will be like, well, I don't want 20 grand. I want more. And the attorney will say, sometimes, take it or else. Or else what? Or else I'll drop your case and you'll get nothing. Attorneys say this, right? I've actually seen attorneys put this in writing. And you have to, I view that as an ethical violation, frankly. So, no one from our firm, just to be clear. So, why does an attorney want to flip a case like that? Well, think about it. That attorney's on 40%, which is common in New York, and they just spent 2 hours working on your case. They got you $20,000 and you accept it. Well, they just made $8,000, right? 40%. So they just made themselves $4,000 an hour. And all they had to do was act like an asshole. It wasn't a lot of skill, wasn't a lot of hard work, didn't require a depth of knowledge, just a couple of phone calls and a certain level of moral flexibility. 9 times out of 10, that's not even fair. You know what? I'm not going to put numbers on it. Sometimes that's a good result for the person because the case wasn't very good. Sometimes it was, right? And you can make an argument that these people who flip cases, they're helping more people. People who might not get helped otherwise. Certainly often would not be helped by our firm, right? And I think that's good. I think that's good that more people are getting helped, even when their case is, not so clear cut, we'll say. I like to see people get helped. So I'm not the angriest person at case flippers, but I routinely see cases that I would have valued 2, 3, 7, 10, 20x that settled for 10, 15, 20 grand because they hired an attorney who likes to flip cases, and that attorney got pretty forceful with the client, and the client took the settlement. That doesn't feel great, right? I mean, listen, you can say, oh, case flippers help more people, and that's good. But there's also got to be a component of like looking at what's good for the client, right? Because flipping the case is good for the attorney. They made $4,000 an hour. That's great for the attorney. But was it good for the client? And the answer to that is it depends. It depends on the quality of the case and the valuation of the case. And there's a lot of factors. We have a ton of videos on this channel about valuing a case, making a demand, all these things, right? And there's a disparity of experience and a disparity of power in that the attorney values cases all day. So the client comes in and thinks the attorney knows what's good, right? The attorney does this every single day, many tens, if not hundreds of times per year, depending on the firm, right? So the client might say to her or himself, well, the attorney knows. The attorney does this all the time. If this is what the attorney's saying, it must be right. And I think that's a really good logic if you can trust your attorney to put you first. I think that's incredible logic. I think that's a great way to think. I think the concept, I often hang my hat on that concept. When people are giving me the business and telling me, oh, blah, 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 this is what's going to happen in my case, I often say, really? How many cases have you run? What are you basing this opinion on? And I think that's a pretty compelling argument. The problem is it can be used as a weapon. And it occasionally is by case flippers who will say, you know what you're talking about. And when they say that, they sound just like me. And I'm not saying people don't know what they're talking about. I'm just saying, like, sometimes we say things we want to be true that aren't true. And it's valuable to have a conversation. Okay, why do you think these things? What are you basing these thoughts and opinions on? Because if we can inspect the foundation, you might find that these things that you're contending are built on a foundation of sand or hopes and dreams, even worse, right? So that is the first reason why. It is a very long, almost 10-minute way to talk about one reason why an attorney might be trying to settle a case very quickly. Now, that's also the ugliest reason and the one that kind of confirms some of your fears. But there's more, right? Often, I have cases where I look at the case and I say, ooh, this is a case. This is definitely a case. This person has been wronged. No question in my mind. But God help me if this person gets on the stand, we are not getting paid. It's a really good reason to get a case settled without letting it go too far. Or just like, things are out there in the ether that could come to light. Or you have concerns. You don't know they're out there, but you have concerns, right? Client made a few comments like, yeah, I never punched anybody. I like to let people know their place. What does that mean? Did you bully coworkers? Like, what are we talking about here? It doesn't change what happened. The case is still the case. There are still things and facts and occurrences that equate to a claim that is valuable. But there's also this chance that there might have been like fistfights in the workplace that you don't fully know about, and that would really, really, really decrease the value of the case, right? This is obviously kind of a tongue-in-cheek hypothetical, meant to kind of touch upon the concept that like there can be flaws in a case a defense counsel has not really zeroed in on yet that can cause an early valuation of the case by defense counsel to be higher than it might later be. It happens routinely. A lot of times when a company has in-house counsel looking at a case, in-house counsel, generally, often at medium and smaller companies does not come from an employment attorney background, right? Listen, Facebook desperately trying to hire themselves some employment attorneys these days. They're running around with recruiters or contacting every employment attorney in the world because they need more employment attorneys to direct all their employment litigation. But when you're not Facebook, when you're not a Fortune 500 company, there's a really good chance your general counsel and most of your legal department has less than significant amounts of employment litigation experience. So the valuation of those attorneys when they look at a case will be different and less insightful than an attorney brought in as outside counsel who runs these cases every single day. And that can go either way, right? In-house counsel might be like, ooh, this looks bad. Offer $500,000. That happens, right? And 6 months later, when they bring in outside counsel might be like, what are you talking about? This is a $90,000 case. You nut. Why did you almost pay this person $500,000, right? And that plaintiff's attorney, for the past 6 months, has probably been begging their client to take the money because they know when outside counsel comes in who actually defends employment cases every day and actually knows what she or he is doing, the valuation is going to go down because of a difference in how in-house counsel calculated damages or just in-house counsel's fear of employment litigation, right? That's very real. The people who litigate employment claims every day, they're comfortable with it. And they have practice controlling the narrative and trying, all these things, right? This is a battle that takes place on multiple levels, right? It's like the 3D chess they play in Star Trek. There's a lot of realms of combat. That's probably not something in-house counsel is comfortable with. That might freak in-house counsel out. They might not want to do it. They might look at this and be like, oh, I'm really good at IP litigation, right? I general counsel at a clothing brand, and I will fight about our IP, our intellectual property every day. It's my bread and butter. It's where I feel comfortable. Oh, God, an employment claim? I don't know how to do that. Just throw money at it, right? So there's other very, very, very legitimate reasons, a whole spectrum, and I'm literally just touching on two when there's hundreds, thousands of reasons why you might want to settle a case early. So there are many reasons. And I don't know anything about your situation, Franco, so I have no idea if your attorney is on the up and up or not. I do have a couple of videos on the channel about how to evaluate and hire an employment attorney that you could probably listen to and use as like a metric or a tool for evaluating your attorney, because trust is kind of the key factor here, right? If I go, and I know I use this metaphor all the time, but if I go hire a brain surgeon, you know what I'm not? A brain surgeon. Both literally not and figuratively not a brain surgeon, right? I don't know the first thing about evaluating a brain surgeon. What am I gonna look at her hands? Oh, her hands don't shake. Must be great. That's probably the stupidest thing anyone's ever said while evaluating a brain surgeon, right? Credentials? What school she went to? I don't know. I don't know how to evaluate a brain surgeon. By the same token, most clients, I would say almost all clients, don't really know how to evaluate an employment attorney. What makes a good employment attorney? Very unclear, right? Like I staff employment attorneys. I hire employment attorneys. I seek out talented attorneys to represent our clients. They take many different forms. Very, very different human beings can be successful at this job. There's no one size fits all answer, right? So my point is, when you're hiring an attorney, it's incredibly difficult to know how to judge the attorney. The videos I put out kind of give some cheats. Look at the ethical history, look at their prior caseload, make sure they're really, really only practicing employment law. Look at how often their firm tries a case, right? Case flippers don't tend to work at firms with trial teams, because firms with trial teams don't want cases flipped. They want cases maximized in terms of value, right? Look at client reviews. Although, keep in mind, client reviews are not always the be all and end all, right? There are definitely people who have left reviews for me saying I bullied them. I guess not me personally. People in my firm bullied them into a settlement. It's like, disagree, right? So look at the aggregate when you're looking at reviews. Like get a feeling for like how many people has this person helped? And out of every 10 helped, how many were happy? And try to get a feel that way. Like that's a really good way to go about it. And you'll watch the video. The videos are out there. And if you can't find it, let me know and we'll try to go through and like spot a few for you. Okay. In short, I've made like a nearly 20-minute video answering what should have been a very simple question. It's not your fault. That's my fault. I hope this is useful. And, Franco, I guess on one hand, I'm sorry you have to deal with the situation. On the other hand, I like the fact that people are talking about giving you money. It sounds like the process is off to a decent start and you are making considered decisions. And that all to me sounds like really good news. So I wish you every bit of luck and I'm cheering for you and go get paid. If this was helpful, like and subscribe. It helps me to help many more people just like you. Take care.